Hi folks, welcome back to my next video where I want to pick it up where I left off in the last video on the scientific method. And to do so, I'm going to answer the question that was posed in the title of this video. Is evolution science or an agenda? Well, in only a few videos, I've already shown you enough data, enough science to show you that evolution is scientifically impossible. And I'm just getting started on this journey because I still have a mountain of data to go through yet. And I'll continue doing that in my future videos. So, if evolution is scientifically impossible and it's not science, what are we left with? The only other option is that it is an agenda being pushed without any data to support it. But if you're not convinced about that yet, in this video, I'm going to share some more information and some quotes that will enlighten you, I'm sure. And to begin with, I want to share a quote that I used in my first video. The American scientist, evolutionist, atheist, Dr. George Wald said, "When it comes to the origin of life, we have only two possibilities as to how life arose. One is spontaneous generation arising to evolution. The other is a supernatural creative act of God. There is no third possibility. Spontaneous generation was scientifically disproved 100 years ago by Louis Pasteur, Spallanzani, Redi, and others. That leads us scientifically to only one possible conclusion, that life arose as a supernatural creative act of God. I will not accept that philosophically because I do not want to believe in God. Therefore, I choose to believe in that which I know is scientifically impossible, spontaneous generation arising to evolution." And now let me add this one. In a November 21st, 2006 New York Times article entitled "A Free-for-All on Science and Religion," George Johnson writes about the forum held at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies in La Jolla, California, that was supposed to help sciences and religion make steps to come together. Not surprisingly, all that ends up happening in forums like these is that the so-called scientists wage war on religion. Case in point, physicist Dr. Steven Weinberg, a Nobel Prize winner, blatantly summarized the feelings of the evolutionists when he stated, "Anything that we scientists can do to weaken the hold of religion should be done, and may in the end be our greatest contribution to civilization." Wow. It comes as no surprise to me that the atheists and the agnostics at this forum outnumbered the believers. Now, there's a real shocker, right? Our society would never allow a fair, impartial, and unbiased forum of any kind for the creation scientists to have an equal opportunity for an objective discussion of the evidence, because they're afraid of what will happen. The truth will come out. Therefore, the blatant summaries from people like Dr. Wald and Dr. Weinberg come as no surprise. Their statements are an excellent illustration of the focus of evolutionary scientists today. And another statement that provides us with an excellent summary of the position of the evolutionists comes from Psalm 5:9. There you go, which says, "Not a word from their mouth can be trusted. Their heart is filled with malice. Their throat is an open grave. With their tongues they tell lies." The position of the evolutionists has nothing to do with truth. It has nothing to do with the true nature of science, being objective and allowing the data to speak for themselves. The fact is, the evolutionists have no interest in the truth whatsoever. Their version of science is no longer about truth and objectivity. To them, science has become subjective and filled with lies. The science of the evolutionist is about an agenda, arrogance, bias, lies, preconceived notions, and opinions, Their science is about control. It's about indoctrination with the lies that they want us to believe and the prevention of anything that's contrary to their belief, especially Christianity. It's about force-feeding us what they want us to believe and drowning out anything that opposes them. And sadly, this includes lying, cheating, falsifying data, and outright fraudulent behavior. And folks, what I just explained there, that defines a cult. The evolutionists have taken over what information is released and what we're taught. They control the schools, the government, the media, the visual, electronic forms of it, and in print. All of that. Nothing is taught anymore outside their cultic agenda. Case in point, Ben Stein has a movie entitled Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed, that was distributed by Rocky Mountain Pictures. And that movie shows the control the evolutionists have taken on our schools at all levels and in all types. If you don't teach what they want you to teach, you'll be humiliated, you'll lose your job, and you'll be blacklisted. They've indoctrinated the entire world with their fraudulent system. And this begins as early as first grade, so they can gain control from the start and never stop. And since this cult thrives so well on college campuses, it's no wonder that between 70 and 75% of Christians will walk away from their faith in college. And this cult has thrived so well because it's not only supported by our media, it's supported by our government. They sanction it. Not only that, schools that want to teach creation science will swiftly be threatened with lawsuits. They'll threaten and intimidate the teachers, the principals, the school board, even though there's no laws against that. Philip E. Johnson, professor of law at the University of California, Berkeley, and author of Darwin on Trial, wrote in the article entitled The Church of Darwin. A Chinese paleontologist lectures around the world saying that recent fossil finds in his country are inconsistent with the Darwinian theory of evolution. His reason? The major animal groups appear abruptly in the rocks over a relatively short time, rather than evolving gradually from a common ancestor, as Darwin's theory predicts. When this conclusion upsets American scientists, he wryly comments, "In China, we can criticize Darwin, but not the government. In America, you can criticize the government, but not Darwin." Folks, this statement describes the scientific position of our country very well. The agenda of the evolutionists is forcing us to become closed-minded bigots. The cult of evolution has gotten so far out of hand that we've allowed our entire society to blindly and gullibly bow down at this unholy altar. And as I mentioned in my first video, the evolutionists have done such a complete and thorough job that this agenda has now taken over the Christian church too. Our churches are filled with believers who doubt the Word of God. And as I said, it's mind-boggling how that's even possible. Christians across our country now doubt what God has said and done, and instead believe the lies, the garbage, and the nonsense that the evolutionists teach. This false doctrine of evolution now runs rampant throughout the churches across America because the American churches have just sat back and allowed it to happen. We've become so indoctrinated with this evil cult and this pseudoscience that our society now thinks and believes that everything evolves. And if you take note, you'll see that everything evolves according to them, from plans to businesses to relationships to love to education to knowledge to information to marketing strategies, to research, to technology, to news stories, to toys, to sports, to cars, to nutrition, to ideas, financial conditions, insurance needs, careers, to workplaces, to TV, to commercials, to books, to movies, and on and on and on. But the fact is, nothing evolves. It never has, and it never will. We have grossly misused this term because of our unholy indoctrination by the evolutionists and the secular media that propagates their twisted belief system. But the bottom line is still the same. Truth is truth, and all else is not. And let me remind you of the two diametrically opposed agendas of the truth and the lies, of light and darkness. The agenda of the light, Jesus summarized in John 10:10 by saying, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. But Jesus also addressed the evil agenda of the darkness in this verse when he said, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. And if you look at 1 Peter 5:8, we also read this, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. You see, the darkness cannot allow the light to shine because truth destroys their basis for existence. Truth is the antithesis of their existence. Their existence is dependent on the absence of light, the absence of truth. Therefore, they must steal, kill, destroy, and devour the truth. The darkness cannot coexist with the light because coexistence will expose and destroy them. Their only hope is to dominate completely and thoroughly. So truth cannot be tolerated. It must be squelched. The light must be extinguished for the darkness to survive. And that's exactly what the evolutionists do. They attempt to extinguish the truth because the truth will always expose them for who they are. And that's why they'll aggressively do whatever they can to weaken the hold of Christianity in our society. As Dr. Weinberg said, no holds barred, no matter what it takes. And that's why the education system in this country is now almost completely void of truth. The nonsense the evolutionists force us to teach has no truth, no matter how often, no matter how loudly, no matter how aggressively or how passionately they propagate it. It's still void of truth. It's still the darkness. And such an education system only produces people who are educated and learned and yet void of truth. And the Bible tells us about such people in 2 Timothy 3:7 when it says that they're always learning but never able to come to a knowledge of the truth. And the evolutionists are by no means finished with their degree of indoctrination through our education system. In the previous video, I explained the critical importance of the scientific method. It's what makes science, science. And I also explained how evolution is not science based on the scientific method, which is why, as I explained in the previous video, the evolutionists are doing everything they can to try to get rid of the scientific method. It's more of the light that exposes their darkness. So knowing that, and what I just shared in this video, does all this sound like actual scientists being objective? Or does it sound like someone having a temper tantrum and doing everything they can to get their way no matter what? Does this sound like an objective search for the truth, or does it sound like a biased agenda? Oh, the pride, the arrogance, and the egotism. And unfortunately, these sad characteristics are rampant among scientists today. I know, I saw it daily. It boggles my mind that the overwhelming majority of intellectuals today think they have all the answers. And not only that, they're very happy to offer their answer to us. Or better yet, they're happy to force their answers upon us. And moreover, for some reason, we flock to the intellectuals and their explanations of life because they pridefully, arrogantly, and egotistically claim that I'm superior to you because of my intelligence level, so you must listen to me. And if you don't, my friends and I will ostracize you, will ridicule you, and will make your life hard. And with the secular media and publishers conspiring with the evolutionists, that's just what they do. They force us into believing what they want us to believe. Now, would it surprise you to know that the majority of intellectuals do believe in evolution and they do not believe in God? Case in point, a 1998 poll of scientists showed that 7% of them believe in God, only 7%, while 72% reject him outright and 21% doubt his existence. So if you haven't thought that scientists and the intellectuals were biased against Christianity, this poll, along with everything else that I just shared with you, tells you all you need to know. They come into the game with preconceived notions and opinions which dictate and direct all their efforts. Everything is done to propagate what they believe in, evolution. And this is not science, nor is it intellectual. It's the pursuit and propagation of an evil agenda in an attempt to destroy God, pure and simple. Because as I said, the light will always expose the darkness. And even though they think they're really something, I think it's humorous to see what God thinks about all this superior knowledge, understanding, and intellect of man. 1 Corinthians 3:19 states, "For the wisdom of this world is foolishness in God's sight. As it is written, He catches the wise in their craftiness." Folks, all this superior knowledge, understanding, and intellect is nothing but foolishness. And don't you think that that puts it all in its proper place? So I'm going to end this video here, but come on back for the next one. And if you like what you hear, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And thank you very much for watching. And as always, we'll leave the light on for you.